One of the most powerful mindset shifts that I have personally experienced, and I'm here to share it with you, of judgment, self-judgment and judgment of others in your life, and be a lot happier. I don't judge them. I don't say this guy's a bad guy, okay? So this is I know this is kind of a very intricate type of analysis, but this is the analysis that I go through to release myself from judgment. The fear of God has helped stop a lot of people from doing a lot of bad things. Once you realize that this concept of why you think they're bad, according to the moral code, is a man-made creation, then I think I have sympathy for them. I don't judge them, and I still don't want to spend time with them. Human history over the last 10,000 years, you see that the 10 Commandments essentially draw a line between barbarianism and civilization. Thou shalt not steal, for example. Where did this come from? I mean, certainly it wasn't around, in the dinosaur age, for example. At some point it came about. So right now in 2023, morality is not universal worldwide. Different cultures have different type of moral codes. Is an act that, has been deemed immoral for many, many centuries. But lately, it's not necessarily deemed immoral. These are human beings that got into a room or under a tree somewhere, and they created these scriptures. Okay, right? This person is a recognized thief, for example, and therefore you judge them. You say this person is bad. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Good Problems to Have with David Nima. I am your host, happiness coach, life coach, marriage coach, dating coach, and divorce coach. I'm an attorney by trade, and I am also the author of the book, Good Problems to Have, The Anatomy of Contemporary Happiness. And in today's episode, we're going to be discussing probably the second most important chapter of the book, which is chapter 8, which is called No Judgment. Okay, this is chapter 8, No Judgment, and it's been probably one of the most powerful mindset shifts that I have personally experienced. And I'm here to share it with you and kind of going to give you an overview of how you can delete the concept of judgment, self-judgment and judgment of others in your life and be a lot happier. Okay, so let's kind of break it down here. And I can't, obviously, as usual, I can't go through the entire book, but go ahead and pick up a copy at your discretion on Amazon and follow along in terms of the concepts that I discuss in the book relating to no judgment. So in this video, I'm going to discuss no judgment and break it down as follows. First, we're going to talk about morality and judgment, and we're going to discuss the history of morality, where our moral concepts have come from. Thou shalt not steal, for example. Where did this come from? I mean, certainly it wasn't around, in the dinosaur age, for example. At some point it came about. If you look at the concept of morality, which is where judgment comes from, right? Let's just say somebody, for example, steals other people's stuff. Somebody is a thief, right? In most cultures, that is deemed to be a bad action. Okay, that's called bad. There's good and there's bad. That's what morality breaks down to in everyday life, essentially, which is what's good and bad. Okay, it's that most people consider their moral code to be kind of the universal code, right? If you think that stealing is bad, you assume that that's kind of universal, right? It's not just idiosyncratic to you that stealing is bad. This is something that society as a whole deems bad. But what's interesting is that when you really get into like stealing is maybe, for example, maybe universally condemned worldwide, but there's other actions that are not necessarily condemned in some more, according to some moral codes, but they are condemned according to other moral codes, right? Morality is not universal right now in 2023. Morality is not universal worldwide. Different cultures have different type of moral codes and laws essentially that are somewhat based on those moral codes. Now, I think the concept of theft as a wrong action, so to speak, or a bad action, that's a pretty easy one to analyze because that's worldwide. Most societies consider theft to be a wrong action, and there's punishment and there's negative consequences to being a thief in most societies. However, for example, masturbation, right? Masturbation is an act that, has been deemed immoral for many, many centuries. But lately, it's not necessarily deemed immoral. And in fact, in some societies, it's actually embedded into the legal law, right? In terms of the criminal code of that masturbation is against the law, right? Or there's a lot of other types of actions that are considered immoral in one part of the world and not considered immoral in another part of the world, right? So societies have kind of their own subjective moral compass, if you will. And so do individuals, right? Like you personally, for example, let's just say that the Bible says that masturbation is bad, right? But you may think, hey, you know what? I'm not going to listen to that. I'm going to go ahead and do what I want to do in this case. And I don't consider it to be a bad thing. But I still won't steal, right? I still won't do some of the other things that are in the Ten Commandments, for example. But you kind of exercise discretion, your own personal discretion when it comes to this quote unquote universal moral code that's based on religion. So morality is very subjective. Okay, and that's demonstrated and illustrated worldwide because there are differences in the moral code right now between individuals and between societies. Okay, and therefore the morality is subjective as is right now. But let's take a look at kind of the history of morality, right? Where did morality come from? Where did the Ten Commandments come from? Where did these moral codes of thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, where do these come from, right? And when you look at kind of, human history over the last 10,000 years, you see that the Ten Commandments essentially draw a line between barbarianism and civilization, right? Before the Ten Commandments, if you were a bigger, stronger person, if you were a bigger human being, you would go and commit acts of violence against others to take their food so that you can feed your family. This is a very kind of natural thing to do, right? So the Ten Commandments come in and say, listen, even though you are bigger and capable of going and killing your neighbor, and taking his food so that you can feed your own children, which is a very natural thing to do, thou shalt not kill. And therefore, kind of, please don't do this, so to speak. So that's kind of where the Ten Commandments come from, right? The Ten Commandments, the entire commandments, none of them are, this kind of, it's not in nature, for example. My dog has no idea about the Ten Commandments, right? So we know that the Ten Commandments are a man-made invention. Humans invented the Ten Commandments, okay? They're not from this divine source, old man in the sky. And if you think that, you're welcome to think it if that makes you feel better. But my opinion is that there's certainly, the Ten Commandments are a man-made invention. They eventually resulted in a social construct, or what we call a social contract. And of course, a lot of our legal codes are based on kind of the Ten Commandments in part, and in the Bible entirely, right? The Jewish Bible and the Christian Bible and the Quran. None of these are, old man in the sky putting pen to paper and writing these things down. These are human beings that got into a room or under a tree somewhere, and they created these scriptures. Okay, I think to be a serious person, one should acknowledge that the Ten Commandments are human inventions, and they're a good guide, just like a lot of things in religion are a good guide. But to kind of say that this is a universal divine instruction, so to speak, I think you're really reaching there in terms of realism, because there's pretty good evidence, historically speaking, that the Ten Commandments are a man-made invention. It's not an invitation to break laws per se, okay? But under the concept of no judgment, you have to acknowledge that anything that anyone judges someone about, right, on the basis of, right? So you judging somebody based on the Ten Commandments, right? This person is a recognized thief, for example, and therefore you judge them. You say this person is bad, right? Hey, you tell your friend, don't spend time with this person. They are bad. Why are they bad? Because they are a thief, right? So once you realize that this concept of why you think they're bad, according to the moral code, is a man-made creation, then I think you break it down into personal preferences, as I discuss in the book. Personal preferences is really what it comes down to. For me, for example, when it comes to somebody who's a thief, I personally don't want to spend time with that person, okay? Because there's a lot of risks associated with spending time with a person who's a thief, right? That person could get arrested, right? That person could be looked down upon by society, and that kind of reputational harm can carry to you because you're their friend. That person could steal from you, right? That person can potentially become, the victim of a violent act because of somebody whose property was stolen, and they're coming after that person. So there's a lot of risk associated with spending time with a thief, and therefore that's why I personally don't want to spend time with a thief. Okay? That's why if you tell me, hey, I want to come to your house for dinner tonight, by the way, I'm a recognized thief and I like to steal stuff, I'm going to say, okay, that's great, but you're not invited. I don't want you in my house because you're a thief, right? So that's my personal preference. And I've kind of done the analysis on that, right? Like I said, there's a lot of risk associated with spending time with a thief. Okay, but I'm not basing my judgment or my decision. Forget about my judgment, because I don't judge that person. In fact, I have sympathy for that person. If you're a thief, it is a tough world to live in today's society. You got the cops after you. You have the risk of moral or societal condemnation and reputational harm. You have the risk of kind of getting injured or killed by a victim of your crimes. And again, there's a potential risk of incarceration. So I personally don't think it's a good life to live. And I have sympathy for anybody who has adopted this lifestyle, whether they've done it out of necessity or they've done it because they like it, for example, right? So I have sympathy either way, that I think they have fallen into what I consider a not so great lifestyle, okay? I have sympathy for them. I don't judge them, and I still don't want to spend time with them, right? And if someone asked me my opinion of this person, I'd probably give out that kind of laundry list of there's some risks here, and this is why I choose not to spend time with a thief. You make your own decision. I don't judge them. I don't say this guy's a bad guy, okay? So this is I know this is kind of a very intricate type of analysis, but this is the analysis that I go through to release myself from judgment, okay? But what I advise you against is judging yourself and others judging them based on this arbitrary moral code that was created thousands of years ago. And there's a lot of utility in the moral code. There's been a lot of utility. The fear of God has helped stop a lot of people from doing a lot of bad things, right? But the reason I don't commit theft, for example, is not because of the fear of God. The reason is because I don't want the reputational harm, the risk of reputational harm. I don't want the risk of incarceration and going to jail. I don't want the risk of potentially violent actions happening against me. So these are some serious risks that are associated with theft. So that's why I don't commit theft. It's easier for me to go and work and make money so I can feed my family rather than engage in that kind of illegal activity and absorb all those risks. This is a really good formula for, releasing your belief in this kind of universal moral code, understanding it for what it is and its utility throughout history, and it's helped a lot. But now we have judges, professional judges that are hired by your local government to judge people, right? So anybody who does something bad, there's a system in place, the justice system, right? That's designed to help judge people, okay? You don't have to judge them personally, okay? Well, I advise you to kind of think about other people in terms of your own personal preferences, and not to kind of speak with this universal authority that God doesn't want you to win. So that's been a little bit about no judgment. This is a very dense topic, and I suggest you kind of look at the book. It's a very short book, and I kind of got to give you a very, really, really good summary of the methodology to reach no judgment. So check it out. Make sure to like and subscribe to GPH Lifestyle on YouTube and Instagram. I'm your host, David Nima, author of Good Problems to Have, The Anatomy of Contemporary Happiness. I'm a happiness coach, and I will see you guys on the next episode.